From Carter Finley Stadium in Raleigh, North Carolina, this is Tar Heel Illustrated.com. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. Please excuse the noise going on around us. We got a guy blowing with a leaf blower up here. Got a lot of stuff going on.
It's not a drone attack.
No, it's what it sounds like. Sounds like we're under attack right now. Shout out Charlie Mickens of ABC 11 for the light as well,
Yes.
illuminating us a little bit so we're not in the dark.
So you guys can see us better, which may not be a good thing, at least on my end.
Or not, but AJ, before we dive into the result of this game, we're obviously here to talk about. Make sure you guys head on over to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Got a great promo going on right now through Monday. You can get 1 year of a subscription, premium subscription for $20.21. That's $20.21. It's for the price of a candy bar a month. I mean, it's a great deal through Monday. Take advantage of that. You can find that the link in the description below. It's a great time to do so with all the stuff going on right now. Enough of the promos though, AJ. We got to talk some Carolina football. Obviously, UNC, losing 34-30 to NC State on this very field right behind us. A lot to talk about. Had a lot of these.
We could do like 46 things.
Yeah, we have to change it.
We're going to do another video in a couple of days. We're going to kind of stretch stuff out, but we're zeroing in on the mess that was tonight right now.
Yeah, well,
the mess for Carolina.
Yeah.
Really, both teams.
It wasn't the greatest game of football, but let's talk about. I want to start with kind of Carolina's red zone struggles. I know we'll talk about more of what happened at the end, towards the end. But we saw Carolina kick a lot of field goals tonight. There was that one drive in particular. I believe it was like 7 or 8 minutes left on the clock. Carolina had 3 big runs to get down in the red zone, and then what'd you say, through 5 straight passes? A couple of those balls, I was down there on the field, were dropped. Should have been caught. But nonetheless, Carolina ends up not punching it in, trading field goals, and it ultimately ends up coming back to haunt them in the end with the final score. So, AJ, a lot more to talk about, but that was a big kind of thing with how this game went. Red zone struggle.
Twice. Their first score was a field goal. On that drive, they had a 40-yard run by British Brooks, who was sensational tonight.
Yeah, it was very good, yeah.
And then they had a 13-yard pass play, 11-yard pass play. They're looking at first and 10 at the Wolfpack 11. 6-yard run, 2-yard run. Sam is sacked. He was sacked 5 times tonight, bringing his season total to 44. And they kick a field goal, and some of us in the press box said, they need points if they really need to score, because at that time, State they had a 14-0 lead. They had the block punt, they had to march down the field for a score, so you're thinking, well, field goals aren't going to win this game.
Yeah.
Well, it was a situation, again, we've seen a lot this year where Carolina gets into the red zone. They get into the teeth of the red zone, and they have trouble putting the ball in the end zone. They end up settling for a field goal. Then fast forward to what you were talking about. They're up 24-21. They're in position to go in for, I don't want to say the kill because of the way things played out, okay? But they're up 24-21. They basically ran the ball. They had, 35-yard run, 20-yard run, and like a 5-yard run. They're down to the NC State 16-yard line. NC State came into the game 17th in the nation, allowing 108 yards rushing a game. At this point, Carolina's like in the 260 range, 265 range. Sam's over 100 yards. British Brooks is over 100 yards. They're just running the ball right at the Wolfpack, and then they throw 5 straight times, 4 of which were incompletes, whether they were dropped or not. Whether there was maybe a flag that should have been thrown or not. And I think the officials said, you know what, we're going to let you guys play.
Yeah, I got that vibe down
So
there,
that's the way the game was. It's like in baseball. If an ump's giving you the corner, giving the pitcher the black, then the hitters have to know. They got to adjust to that.
Yeah,
so they should have run. They should have run the ball. I'm not big on questioning what coaches do because I'm not a coach or anything like that. But look, you're stuffing the ball down their throat. You're in position right there to give yourself a really healthy cushion. And instead, they ended up kicking a field goal. It was 27-21. And when they got the ball back, they ended up in that situation where they went for the 50-yard field goal with Grayson Atkins to get the margin they could have had they maybe run the ball and gotten in the end zone on that possession that we're talking about. The structure of the game would have been very, very different. I'm not saying that that's why they lost, but it is a component that feeds into the fact that they lost this game. Get a touchdown there. Maybe you call it differently on the drive. They end up getting the 50-yard field goal. Maybe you go for it because you've got that cushion then. You get the first down, boom, you salt that thing away. Didn't work out that way. The issues in the red zone have been there all year. Mac Brown's talked about it. Phil Longo's talked about it. You've got a quarterback that can barrel. In fact, he had 2 rushing touchdowns inside the red zone. You've got a run game, a conventional run game that was doing very well. Pass game was not on. The protection wasn't there. They were popping Sam left, right, and center. They blew an opportunity there, in my opinion, to give themselves a little bit more of a cushion to withstand what eventually took place.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's worth talking about because, like you said, they're being so successful running the ball, and you get down the red zone and just stop running the ball, which you've been dominating the night at. So, I mean, like I said, you're not here to
NC State basically said that there's no reason you guys should throw.
Yeah.
And they threw 5 straight times.
Yeah.
So, guys didn't make plays. Players still supposed to make the plays. Mm-hmm. So many other reasons why this team why this team lost. But I think that was an opportunity that was somewhat in their control, where maybe some other things weren't. And I would imagine that when they come back over what happened, that's probably something that they'll have a discussion about.
Yeah, most definitely. I want to talk about special teams a little bit because, Grayson Atkins, good night for him. Obviously hitting a big field goal. I think he thought it was a game-winning field goal. I was right there on the Carolina bench sidelines after that. The whole Carolina bench thought the game was over. Trust me, it was. And Jeremiah Gilman, go listen to his interview. He kind of talked about the same thing, that the team was just a little bit overhyped after that and thought it was over. But going back to special teams, the onside kick by NC State. It was a very interesting onside kick. It was a great onside kick from NC State perspective in terms you had Carolina overloading on both sides and you had 2 guys in the middle essentially. And the kicker kicks it up and he ends up recovering himself too. So let him down right there. You also had the blocked punt, to open the scoring for NC State early on in the game. That really just gave them that momentum, that belief. I know it kind of cooled off for them and kind of came back to being even, but special teams something that Carolina really hasn't. I'm not going to say they've struggled a lot this year. They just haven't really done anything on both sides of the ball to take that next step to win games. Being great on special teams or on offense or on the defensive side. So another struggle tonight.
I think Mac has been very kind about special teams this year because I think they haven't been disastrous, but they haven't done anything to help them win games.
Yeah, exactly.
And tonight, the punt block, there was a missing the protection. They give up a touchdown right out of the gate. They had another punt block. Yeah. And Garrett Walston, fortuitous set of circumstances there. He gets the ball, picks it up, runs 18 yards, gets a first down after the block, and we're all scrambling in the press box.
That was one of the wildest plays.
We've never seen that before. Is that even legal?
That was one of the wildest plays I've ever seen.
Because I'm thinking, God, that would be like the same thing as a muff punt. You can't advance a muff punt. So Carolina, they ended up punting, but what that did was that saved the defense from having to defend inside the 10-yard line.
Yeah.
If Walston doesn't pick that up, that punt leads likely to a touchdown. Yeah. And we're never even in that end of game situation because I think State would have put their foot on Carolina's throat at that point and run away with the win. So special teams put them in that situation there. Then after the field goal by Atkins, the penalty, the celebration penalty, counts as a special teams penalty.
That's a good point,
And then the 37-yard kickoff return that followed.
Yep.
State ended up having a penalty on the first play. There was a sack or something.
It looked like Carolina kicked that on purpose as well, because I'm not going to say it was, but that's what it appeared to me to be like.
Well, that's not the first time there was a curious kickoff in that situation this year. Mm-hmm. Wake Forest was the same thing. So the 37-yard return, let's go back earlier. They allowed some kickoff returns twice earlier this year against Duke and Florida State. Jonathan Kim, the kickoff specialist, had to make tackles. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, those are touchdowns. So we've seen issues with kickoff coverage this year, and it bit them. Now, maybe the 64-yard touchdown to Emezi ultimately would have been 84 yards. Yeah. Didn't really matter where the ball was, but they got the touchdown. I think that gave State a little bit more jive. Mm-hmm. Carolina had all the momentum in the world, and boom. And there's nothing like a kickoff return that gets a team going, or a block punt. Mm-hmm. And that got State going. It was a big mistake. And then, of course, the onside kick. Wake nearly got one.
Yeah, very close.
And NC State did get one. This was a terrible night for Carolina special teams, aside from Grayson Atkins. This has not been a great year for special teams. It's the second time they've had a game in consecutive years in which they've had 2 punts blocked. Yep. Florida State last year, and that cost them a game there. And tonight, and you could say that first 83 seconds into the game, State's up front, didn't have the ball. They're on top 7-0 because of the blocked punt. So Terrible night for special teams.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't a great night.
And I think that maybe that more than anything else cost them the game.
Yeah, most definitely. Let's talk about the ending. I tweeted it out right after. It was collapse of all collapses, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not trying to criticize too much, but that's essentially what it was. I think most Carolina fans would agree with. I think most neutral perspective fans would agree with that as well. I was down on the sideline. I've talked about it a little bit, but Grayson Atkins hits the field goal, and you talked about them getting that penalty right after that for celebrating. That's not the first time we've seen Carolina over-celebrate plays this year. But I was on the sidelines, and I'm watching the Carolina players. Jeremiah Giddem alluded to this as well, and you could tell that Carolina thought they had won the game. There was a little trash talking going on between State fans and Carolina fans. A lot of it was from State fans that were initiating. I was back there the whole time. It was very easy to see. It's what you expect in this rivalry game. And then, I'm getting ready to kind of move around the field, and I look up, and on the Jumbotron, and it's a wide open touchdown. And you're like, oh, no, this is...
busted coverage.
You're like, this might get interesting. Onside kick comes, State recovers. I was right there in the end zone. Emeka Emezie was 2 feet away from me on the touchdown. Just went up and won the ball from Cam Kelly. I mean, no doubt about it. Out-muscled him, made a play on him. He's a really good wide receiver, one of the best in State's history, but still, it was a meltdown. It was a collapse. There's no other way to put it. Carolina should have won that game. They were in control, 9-point lead. You expect them to win that game. But in the end, they didn't. And it was a wild ending, to say the least.
If you take the last 2 minutes of this game, and if you want to know, hey, let's say you've been on an island. So you lost on an island back in August, and you think, hey, Carolina's going to have a great season. They're number 10 in the country.
Yep.
And then you parachute into Carter Finley Stadium with 2 minutes left, and you see what happens, and you ask someone, so really, what was wrong this season? You just say, look at the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a complete mess.
The summary of the year in a lot of ways.
They had they had 3. See, you know what I did. I had like 48 notes in my 5 takeaways, and one of the things was, hey, they're not beating themselves with penalties, even though a touchdown was called back because of a penalty, which happens seemingly every game.
They had to erase those notes.
Then they just melted down with the penalties. They had 3 penalties up to that point.
Yep.
And then I think they have 5 the rest of the game. They had the 1 on the celebration. They had 3 on NC State's touchdown drive after the onside kick.
Yep.
And but they had an illegal receiver downfield.
Pass interference, I believe.
Yeah, they had all kinds of stuff. That's after when they got the ball back. Yep. So they didn't make plays defensively. There was busted coverage on Emezie's 64-yarder. They got a sack in there, but it was really just a culmination of, here's a team that just had a bad year.
Yeah.
And very little of what they thought was going to happen actually happened. And here they are with 2 minutes left. They have a chance to spoil NC State's, very rare ACC title hopes. It doesn't happen here very often, just like it doesn't happen in Chapel Hill very often. Yeah. And they do it on this stage, prime time, ESPN, pretty big audience watching, people waiting for a big basketball game to come up afterward. Yeah. And here's Carolina, showed resiliency once again, like they've done so often this year, showing mental fortitude and grit. And then they just, boom, melt down. To me, that was the biggest collapse in the last 2 minutes of a game I've ever covered.
Definitely for me.
I have no idea how many college football games I've covered.
A lot.
Probably 350 at least, probably more than that. I have no clue. And I've never watched something like this in front of me in person ever happen before.
Yeah.
The State had, 260 yards of offense up to that point?
Carolina defensively looked good for most of it.
In the last 2 minutes, they scored 2 touchdowns, and they do what they have to do, and Carolina just wilted. And it was so many aspects, and there were all those things that led up to it, obviously.
Yeah.
Mother of all meltdowns, we hear that mother term every once in a while, mother of all meltdowns, and Max said afterward he doesn't recall experiencing something, being in something like this, especially on the losing end.
Yeah.
They picked these guys up a lot this year. And I've given a lot of credit to the staff for not losing these kids. And they didn't lose them tonight.
No.
There was every reason in the world to think, man, they're just going to lay down and die.
Yeah.
And they didn't. No. And they fought, and they scored 24 consecutive points in this game. They dominated first.
Yeah, they did. They looked really good for them.
And to take all of that and win what I thought was their best all-around game, even in spite of some of the special teams mistakes that hadn't yet happened until 27-21 or 30-21. And they just let it all go away. It was almost, to be perfectly honest with you, not trying to shovel dirt on anybody here, but it was almost a fitting way before this season end, given the fact that they ended up 6-6. If Miami loses to Duke Saturday, 3 of their losses were to teams that won't even go to bowl games.
Yeah.
I mean, Georgia Tech's a mess. Told you guys 2 months ago they were a mess. They routed this team.
Yep.
Virginia Tech ended up firing its coach. They handled this team. You know, Florida State, I guess they have to beat Florida, which they should do, but Florida State's an issue. They lost to an FCS team.
Yeah.
Their second win a month later was in Chapel Hill.
Yep.
So it's a bad year. And it's a bad year that finished in the worst possible way. And they still go to a bowl game. They have a chance to redeem themselves a little bit. They have a chance to get better. Some young guys will play. And it'll be very interesting, and it'll be really the beginning of next season.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, the end of the 2021 season was pretty bad. Almost a fitting way to end, given the way so many things played out this year. Yeah. But that was awful.
But it was, yeah. I mean,
it was awful. You know, I feel bad for those kids. I feel bad for the people involved in the program. And boy, for State, if State ends up in Charlotte next week, if Wake loses Saturday,
yeah, credit to them. Credit to them.
State fans will tell the story of these 2 minutes for the next 100 years.
Yeah, most definitely.
Carolina fans won't.
Yeah, I was right by the tunnel when the Carolina fans were walking in after the game, too, and it's just shell shock. I mean, really, I didn't see a single Carolina player's face that couldn't almost, it just looked disbelief in their face. And you can't blame them based on what we saw down there. So, yeah, regular season finale, Carolina dropping 34-30 to NC State, winless on the road for the Tar Heels this year.
0-5 all-night games.
Yep.
And they lost it a variety of different ways. But look, Pittsburgh in overtime here. They had the ball in the red zone with 1:15 left at Notre Dame with a chance to do something pretty wild. Didn't work out. They fought back against Virginia Tech, but they had the interception. You know, 3 of these 5 road losses,
yep.
The last play of the game in which Sam Howell was on the field, interception.
Yep.
Tonight's was, you know, Hail Mary stuff, but still, dragged to the earth against Virginia Tech, pick. Dragged to the earth against Pitt, pick.
Yep.
Tonight, Hail Mary, pick.
Yep. Wild game to say the least. Wild game. From neutral perspective, hell of a game to cover, but that'll do it for us here at Tar Heel Illustrated.
I deleted 6,000 words.
Yeah, that's to say.
Who am I?
About to say, God knows how many words you've actually written tonight, and it's freezing out here too, guys. So we'll run.
It's ridiculous.
I was triple, quadruple layered on the field, and I was
People were talking about my threads now. I'm like, guys, I just want to stay warm. I'm not going to wear one of those Costanza bulky jackets. Big coat. I'm not going to wear that. So I wore this.
Oh, yeah. If you were down on the field,
looking dapper in the cold air, right?
Exactly.
It's like 35 right now.
It's brutal out here. We'll run. I know AJ's got plenty of writing to do. I got some work to do as well. Keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Thanks for watching as always, guys. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell as well so you know every single time we upload. And we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thanks.